Hello everyone and welcome back to Her Creative Freedom Podcast. Today I am very honored to have my dearest friend Amber Kupina on the show as my very special guest. I have to say this because this is how I felt when I first started my podcast, and I knew I was going to do a podcast, and you launched your podcast. Not to, like, as soon as you saw yours, I was like, oh, that's what I'm doing, and I was really excited. And then I was like, I'm going to have her on my podcast. And if you've ever had an experience where you've met someone famous or where you've experienced yourself fangirling, I knew, like, 4 months ago that I was going to have Amber on my show, and I was so fucking nervous, and I thought I wouldn't be able to do it because I was going to be fangirling and, like, hot and sweaty, but I'm actually okay.
Of course you're okay.
So thank you for joining me today.
Oh my gosh, you made me hot and sweaty.
So yeah, I want to start with introduction of the greatness that you are. If you could introduce yourself.
Sure. Okay, so I feel like there's so many things I could say about myself, but I guess the biggest thing to know about me is that my commitment to my spirituality is my priority. It became my priority because I had a childhood that had quite a bit of trauma in it, and at one point I just knew that I couldn't have my life like this anymore. So I really went into the world of spirituality and self-development, and now it's just my complete and total priority. I love holistic food, I'm a mother, I am a goofball, I am all over the place. So that's a little tidbit about me.
She is an amazing mother. She's an amazing wife. She has a podcast that you should all follow, and I'll put her podcast link in my description of this episode as well, because you have to check it out. Great information. It makes you feel just so connected and happy and put together. It's really great.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
So going into what you do.
Yes.
You kind of already said it, but is there any significant moment that you can remember that you knew that you wanted to go this direction? I'm actually thinking as I say this, the story that you said about how you thought you were a witch.
Yeah.
Can you tell that?
Yes. Well, you know what? When I was little, like from a very young age, I knew that I wasn't going to have a normal job. I knew that I wasn't going to be in a career that was 5 days a week. I knew that I was meant to do something that was special and inspiring. And for a long time when I was a kid, I was just infatuated with the world of magic. I was infatuated with the world of possibility, and I loved Halloween Town. Still love Halloween Town. If you haven't watched it, it's my favorite movie. And I would always watch these shows that had magic in it. And I remember as a kid thinking, like, there's no way that this is not possible and that this is just on TV. And it was just such a certain knowing inside of me. And so I wouldn't say that I knew at a young age that I was going to do spiritual healing, because for a long time I struggled a lot with spirituality or religion in general. Yeah. But I remember the first time my grandmother struggled with kidney disease. And so she was on dialysis for years, and then she had to get a kidney transplant. And I remember at one point it was getting really bad. Like, she was just really not doing well. And I had never prayed because I just believed it didn't work. And because you know, I mean, you see your family praying, and I was like, it doesn't work. Like, they're not getting things that they want. What is it doing? Mm-hmm. And then one night I decided to pray for my grandma, and I decided to pray for her to get a kidney. And I was very young, like probably like 7. And that night, my mom woke me up, and we had to go to the hospital because my grandma had got, like, picked for a transplant. And I remember in that moment, I was like, oh, it works. And then I felt like I did that. I felt like, not I got her the transplant, but I felt like I contributed in some way to, like, the stars and the energy and the consciousness aligning for her to have that. And so I remember that was a very pivotal moment for me in believing in something bigger, that I asked for something from the unknown, and it happened that moment. But for a long time, I also thought that I was meant to be a performer and a singer or celebrity of some kind.
She is a celebrity, people.
Oh my gosh, it's honestly hilarious that you even say that, because I'm not. But I truly, like, loved Hollywood. But again, like, there was this, it felt like they knew something, or they had something that was just not existent in this world. But so I thought it was performing or something. I knew I was meant to, like, be in front of people. But then as I decided at 19 to do a self-development course, I had this shift, and it really propelled me all of a sudden towards healing and the unknown and meditation. And so it was really like this pivotal moment for me that took me towards this world. And it wasn't until probably a few years ago that I understood that my desire to perform and be in front of people wasn't necessarily for me to always sing in front of people, but also to use my ability to express myself as a way to guide people to an experience.
Use your voice kind of thing.
Yeah, and so I just had an inner knowing that I was meant for more, and that the life that I was living in this childhood and the experiences I saw my family members have or extended family members have, I just knew it wasn't for me and that I was different. And so that was kind of like the inner knowing that I was meant to do something more. What happened multiple times was when I went and saw different spiritual healers, they always told me that I had a gift I wasn't sharing yet. And I remember in that moment, I'd be like, fucking tell me. Do you care if I swear on your podcast?
No, I don't care.
Anything about that. I would be like, tell me, I need to know. Like, I just wanted this, like, validation of, like, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? And so it was, now that I've done my journey to where I'm at, it's just, my whole journey's been about understanding and validating my own intuition, my own guidance, and what's right for me, instead of seeking out someone else to tell me.
Yeah.
And I think that's what a lot of people do, is they seek out, like, give me the answer, psychics, give me the answer, what am I supposed to be doing, where am I supposed to be going? And so I had a few moments with other healers where they kind of gave me the nudge of, like, you know something, you feel something, are you going to follow it? But it took me a while to understand what that was, but I was always leaning into following the guidance of, like, if I felt like I was supposed to sign up for a course or a program or work with someone, I would do it. I would never hesitate. I would never say no. And I really just kind of chose it. And that makes sense.
Yeah, and like you said, your inner knowing was at 19, and that's pretty young.
Well, my inner knowing was, like, from a child that I was meant for more.
Yeah.
I had no idea what that meant, but I looked at life and I knew it was meant to be more magical. I knew it was meant to be more fulfilling and more joyful. I knew there wasn't meant to be fighting and screaming. I knew there wasn't meant to be scarcity and lack. I knew there wasn't meant to be tension or violence or coping mechanisms or escapism. And as a child, I lived into one of my coping mechanisms from a child was, like, escape into dreamland. So I would always go to sleep early. I would put headphones in and listen to music, or, like, your tape, what's that called, a Walkman?
Yep.
I would listen to, like, music and imagine a different life. And so I spent a lot of time in dreamland, which can be very beneficial, but when you're doing it 24/7, like I was, it was very much so a coping mechanism. But it also gave me vision. It let me become a visionary for my life. And so I had an inner knowing I was meant for more, but when I signed up at 19 for the course that I did was the Landmark Forum, someone told me it will change your life, and I thought, I need to change my life. It wasn't ever about me becoming more. It was about me needing to change my current circumstance, my internal reality, my relationship to myself, and my life in general. So my 19-year-old decision was like,
you were doing it to better yourself and better your life, and it kind of just led you down. And in that, with the journey that she took in healing humans, she also has a beautiful gift of healing animals, which when I first was introduced to Amber and I went on her website to book an appointment with her and I saw that she did spiritual or healing on animals, I thought that was the coolest shit I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know that aspect of you. So what experiences have you had with that? What would people heal? Like, what would people need for their animals?
People sometimes are, like, more willing to heal their animals than themselves. It's funny because animals are so much easier to heal because they don't have the resistance. They don't have the ego mind interrupting. So usually you can work on an animal for, like, 20 minutes versus a human or a person can take
20 years.
Multiple sessions, right? So a lot of animals I only saw once. A couple I would see more than once, but it would range. Like, most of the time I worked on dogs and cats. I went from, like, I worked on horses too, and I've worked on goats before. And usually what people want to heal is like aggression in dogs.
Okay, that makes sense.
Or a cat that had something happen and then just started screaming all night. So it was like the people couldn't sleep because their cat was so loud. I did heal a dog that was basically facing death. So in the session, the intention of the session was either it could use the healing to pass on, or it could use the healing to, rejuvenate and come back to a healed self. It chose to, I had a message from the girl for so long. It's so funny. You do things and then you don't know what happens. People don't tell you what happens after their sessions. But then a few months later, she told me that her dog, the next day, went from no walking and not doing anything to, it was running around, chasing its tail and eating again. So animals can be really receptive. And I've worked on lots of rescues. But yeah, I took energy work, healing, and then I blended the other training that I had on animals. And that's
so cool.
Yeah. And to animals, it'll also, even with our children, we as the adult can project our own experience onto our own belief system. So sometimes an animal would start healing, but the owner now has this expectation of it behaving a certain way. Instead of holding space and visualizing the way that they desire the animal to be, they would hold on and be very attached to the old way. So the dog or the animal would show improvement and then all of a sudden return back to its old self. And that oftentimes isn't because of the dog, but because the person has not changed. An animal is ultimately a reflection of its owner.
That's so true. Oh, I've never heard that quote before. And animals are a reflection. And it's so true because I think a lot of people they just get this pet and they don't consider the fact that they do feel your emotion. That's a different podcast that I could go about animals, but they are very connected to their humans and they feel and they see what you see and feel what you feel, for sure. So going into...
Well, I can tell you something that you might like about animals.
Tell me. I love everything about animals.
So animals are different, right? Dogs are drawn to positive energy. That's why if they feel or sense fear, they can get more aggressive, whereas cats are more drawn to negative energy. So that's why when people are like, I hate cats, and this cat won't leave me alone, it's all over me, they can feel it. But what cats do is they pull energy, and then they transmute it. So they'll transmute it and heal it by sleeping or by laying in the sun to alter the...
So if someone has negative energy in them, the cat can sense it and goes closer to them.
Yeah, and it's an attempt to pull the energy from them. So cats, I always call them healers, because when I had a cat, I loved my cat. She was the best. She would lay on me when I was in emotion, and she would pull energy from me and transmute it. And oftentimes you'll notice that when you're happier, a dog will be around you, but sometimes if you're in a negative mood, the dog doesn't necessarily hang out beside you.
No. Yeah. That's so interesting. I mean,
animals are companions. So, a dog will have loyalty. Dogs have loyalty in relationships. You'll heal those stories. That's beautiful. So they will be around their owner, but it's not a blanket statement. I'm not saying all dogs will avoid you if you're in a bad mood, because oftentimes too they will be your companion and they'll comfort you.
But they're intuitive too.
Yeah, but they're not as drawn to it, and they tend to be way more if you watch my dog Shaggy. If you're with me and you hang out with him, he's very intuitive when it comes to people who have addictions. So if there is someone who it comes over that has an addiction issue, or that is around, or that we walk past that has an addiction issue, he turns crazy. But he's a rescue, so he came from a drug house. So he's very aggressive towards that. But then anyone else, he'll be a lap dog. He'll cuddle you.
He will not stop licking you and giving you all the love.
But if he knows that you have addiction issues or you have heaviness, he gets a little bit defensive and protective.
Crazy. I love that.
Yeah.
So I've worked with Amber before as one of her clients. So I know the impact that she has made for me and my life, and I've been part of her groups and her programs, and they're absolutely phenomenal. So I get to also witness the impact that she's making in other people's lives. And it's one of those situations where you truly don't know what it's like until you've experienced it yourself. And at the same time, in saying that, for the people that maybe won't ever work with her, I feel like it's my mission, because I have to tell people how incredible it has been for me in my life, because I would not be literally sitting here. Well, okay, would I be sitting here with the podcast? Probably, but it would have went a lot differently. But she's been a huge impact in my life for the things that I have now, and I just give a lot of credit to her for that, hugely. So in saying that, I know why you did this, because I've worked with you, but I want you to say why you do what you do.
Well, first off, I don't take any credit for your evolution and healing. All I did was show you what you already knew was possible for yourself. And sometimes that's what people need, is like a fucking reminder, you know what I mean? Like, you have so much potential and power inside of you, and it's almost like you just need to be shown it again.
Yeah.
And you need to all of a sudden develop faith and certainty in all of the things that you can do. And so, I mean, essentially what I do is I heal your consciousness. I heal the layers and blueprints that exist in your consciousness that can be wounded, or can be fear-based, or can be lack-based, or doubt-based. And we rewire them into a healed pattern. So, like, let's use you for an example. Like, how would you have described yourself when we had first met? Like, what was probably the biggest theme?
Of what I was healing?
Yeah.
My eating disorder.
Right. And so what do you believe caused your eating disorder?
I would say childhood trauma, but also the trauma within relationship.
And so this is a great example, okay? So someone will come and seek out healing for a specific issue, right? So let's call it the eating disorder. The eating disorder is your solution to the actual problem. Mm-hmm. So what we do is we discover, we find out you're experiencing something, but this is a manifestation of something else. It's the way that we learned to try and solve our problem, to try and cope with it, and to try and feel something different. Every behavior is an attempt to get an emotional need met. So eating disorders, the consciousness of them is self-hate. So if we go and we look, okay, well, a childhood trauma might have triggered it or imprinted it. In those moments as a child, you might have felt like you were not who you should be. Maybe you felt like you were supposed to be a certain way for the people around you to be approved of.
Yeah. And I was just going to say, and with control. So in my childhood, I didn't have control over a lot of more traumatic things that happened in my life. I witnessed too much at a young age, and I had no control over a lot of things that happened. So working with Amber, that is what it taught me, is that it was a coping mechanism. And I thought for years that was the problem. My eating disorder was the problem. Heal that. But going into as far back as I could, and actually like journaling, like what can I remember as a kid, and actually sit with how it made me feel. And it was that moment, I was in my backyard and I was journaling about everything, and I was feeling how I could feel it as I was writing it on paper, how it made me feel. And then it kind of made me realize, like, I had no control over those situations, but that was the one thing, myself was the one thing I did have control over. And that's how I coped with everything I didn't have control on in my life. And it really took off and kind of just like bled into everything up until my 20s, until I finally learned more about myself and my life.
Yeah. And control of how you feel about yourself, right? Yeah. So if I can feel this way about myself, I can control how I look, I can control how I perceive myself, I can control the way that I eat. But all of it comes down to this self-love and this ability to accept fully as you are. And when you accept, sometimes you release control. That can be very uncomfortable for people. It can be very challenging, because I don't want to give up control, because there's this level of certainty that I know when I behave this way or I engage this way, I get a certain result. But what we don't know is that uncertainty is the place where possibility exists. It's the place where miracles and healing exist. And when we let go and surrender and go into it, we actually discover that there is a different possibility, because you can actually feel even better than what you're trying to feel through your certain coping mechanism or behavior.
Yeah, and that's what I was thinking, was when you said, when you go towards the known, because you know what the result is, at least from my experience, that result was never a good one.
And it doesn't matter if it's good. All it matters, this is what sometimes people don't understand with healing. They're like, we actually are attached to the things oftentimes that cause us pain, not because we like them, but because they're familiar, because
Yeah.
we know them, because we understand them, because we have a level of certainty with them.
Yeah.
And so we struggle oftentimes with realizing the thing that we say we desire the most, we actually don't want, like love,
Yeah.
like self-acceptance, because we have this tough time giving up our certain control mechanisms or our certain behaviors because we have such a strong relationship with them.
Yeah, and that's sometimes, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but for the people who experience true self-confidence and true self-love, to somebody else that is not frowned upon, but it's a very unknown feeling. I'm actually stepping into my confidence, and I'm like, not sure. Like, it's great. It's a great not sure, but I'm like, I'm not sure really what's happening.
Yeah, because you're not used to it.
So that's what I'm trying to get at, is like,
Yeah.
the uncertainty of being confident in yourself is new.
Yep. This
But
is where often people will start sabotaging.
Yeah.
So that they're like, oh, fuck, this is unfamiliar. So then they
Go
back.
back.
Into patterns.
And I can so relate to that, because that is what happened for me for a long time, now that we're just on the topic of the eating disorders, because that was what mine was. But as soon as I felt like I had that option of choosing healing or choosing what I already knew, it was very scary. I knew what choosing food and all that stuff looked like, but I knew it wasn't the right thing. And as soon as I was like, no, I'm going to choose my healing, it got dark and scary and so difficult that oftentimes before I would go to the known, because it was so incredibly scary to sit with the healing.
It is.
But through working with your programs and having a community around us of like, it's really nice to have a community around you that are going through different things but similar emotions, because then when they do something that you are trying to also do yourself, they give you that reassurance that like, when you do actually choose healing, it's incredible. I have no reason to doubt my healing.
No, because that's like, even going back to as a child, I knew magic existed. Healing showed me it does.
Yeah.
Healing showed me that there is so much energy and consciousness and potential that we can tap into, and we don't. We act powerless. We act with limitation. We act in this very third dimensional, dense, material way. And we don't realize that if there's so many subtle energies we can work with to heal these patterns and consciousness blueprints that take you from these patterns into a more healed version of yourself. So now, like you said, you were going through this eating disorder, which was this layer of trauma from your childhood, as well as this need for control and ultimately a need for self-love.
Yeah. It was all about self-love and confidence for me too.
So what we do is, going back to like what I do, is we heal the consciousness blueprint. So your consciousness holds blueprints for everything that you could think of, okay? It holds a blueprint for anger. It holds a blueprint for abundance. It holds a blueprint for love, for peace, for joy, for fear, for infertility, for OCD, for perfectionism. We can go in and we can discover what these look like and what they feel like and reprogram them into their healed opposite. So we took these layers of you energetically and in your consciousness, and we repatterned them into a healed version of you. We healed moments from your timeline of your childhood. We've healed layers of the way that you visualize yourself. We've healed subconscious and unconscious aspects of yourself, so that in this reality, in this conscious state of mind, in this time space, you begin to express a different pattern.
Yeah. Really started working with you, and I got to witness that for a long time. And for a lot of people, going into face the things that you don't want to face can be incredibly difficult and scary, but it's so worth it in the end. And that is, when the way that you explain it, it sounds very simple. And
it is simple.
It is simple. But in our
it's
brains,
simple but very complex. That's the thing with healing, is it's very simple, but it's extremely complex. Just like how in your body, like a cell is a simple thing, but the way that the cell functions and the even like when you break the cell open and you find everything that's inside of it, it is complex.
Yeah.
But it's a simple thing.
And I think the biggest thing that I literally tell everyone when I talk about you and my own life and how far I've come and everything is that when you push past the feeling of how hard it's going to be, it's so worth it in the end. And we've always heard that, you know, we did this, but it was worth it in the end. But it's worth it through the entire thing. I don't really know if there's ever an ending, but it's just worth it. And I want people to know that if you are resisting something that might even for a second, whether it's actually a benefit to you or not, if you're resisting something, just go for it, because you'll take something away from it no matter what. And for the amount of things that I have learned about myself, even just having confidence in myself, yeah, I don't know, it was worth it, and the whole world needs to know.
It is worth it. And sometimes our resistance, we don't even know that that's what's happening. We're like, oh, I don't have the time. I don't have the money. Or I'm too busy. When my busyness lightens up a little bit.
Yeah.
That's all an unconscious expression of resistance.
Your experiences with your work. Where has it taken you? What are the things that you've done with your group programs per se? You've done a lot of one-on-ones, but I know you've done a lot of group things as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, my healing, like, I started it to heal myself, and that was my focus for a long time until I felt like I was equipped enough to be of service to someone else. And I don't think you have to be fully healed to help people heal, but I knew that sometimes people want to rush into being a healer instead of focusing on themselves first. So that was really my priority, was like, I gotta be the best version of me, or I gotta at least be working towards the best version of me and get some work under my belt before I can start. So I spent a lot of time doing one-on-ones. Then I started doing some smaller group work where I would have only, I think, 10 people. I would work with 10 people, and it kind of started as just like building a bit of a community. And at first I didn't really understand how much community would be a part of my mission, but it kind of started as like, what would it be like to be around other people that thought the same as you? Because that was something I never had, and I wanted to create this space. So I've done so many things. At one point I studied holistic nutrition, so I was taking nutrition clients, and then I saw that there was things that needed to be healed energetically, so then I would do kind of like a combo of healing and nutrition packages. And
that's so cool.
And then I took my animal healing training, so I started doing that. And then I took shamanism training, so then I started doing more of that with space clearing, so like healing people's homes. And now it's really evolved after, I held healing circles and did like live events. And now my work has really shifted. So one of the things that I noticed was that people dabble. And people are like, I would have people come and see me like once a year, and they would do like a one-on-one. And then they would be like, oh, I've been healing with Amber for 2 years. And I'm like, you've healed with me for we've done 2 hours of work together. That's not 2 years. And people, this was like a theme I was seeing, was people were saying, oh, I've been doing my healing for this many years, but I knew that they weren't actually doing it. And healing became my life, and it will be my life for the rest of my life. It is your life, yeah. It is my life. And so I noticed that people were dabblers. And so what I wanted to do after I had Harlow, and I took a nice break of like being a mom, and then when you become a mom, when you're in this world, becoming a mother surfaces even more of your stuff that needs to be healed. And so I spent a good majority of the first year of Harlow's life like doing deep, intense healing and going through some of it was funny because it was like the most joyful, happy time of my life. Like, I was so madly in love. I had never experienced love like that. It was the best experience while surfacing all my pain. And so it was like pain that I hadn't dealt with yet, like traumas that I hadn't unearthed. And so it was like this interesting, dark light situation. But it was so transformative for me. But then what I wanted to do was I wanted to take my life to the next level. And I knew, again, it was like this calling where I was like, I'm missing my work. I'm missing what I'm doing. Like, I am a multidimensional being. I'm multifaceted. And being a stay-at-home mom is one of my biggest priorities. But I cannot let my mission fall to the side. And I know that I would, if I looked back at my life and didn't continue doing healing and just stayed as a stay-at-home mom, I would feel unfulfilled. And what I love about my work is that I can do amazing things and be a full-time stay-at-home mom. Yeah. And so I now I took more spiritual development and more coaching programs, and I work specifically with Tony Robbins.
He's amazing.
He's amazing, and I mean, he's so well known, but like, no one is fucking Tony Robbins. I mean, like, he just is so good. So I've done multiple programs. I mean, I spent like over $20,000 in coaching in the past year, and it was the best thing ever because it showed me what my next level was. It showed me what I was supposed to be doing. And so I decided to create my own like signature program. So what I did was I blended the world of spiritual healing with like spiritual coaching. So taking like coaching principles and blending it with the healing world. And so I created Soul Mastery, which you took.
And it's amazing.
And thank you so much. And it's now like it's my baby. Like, I will be nurturing it, I will be growing it, I will be evolving it, and that is an 8-week program that will one day I'm going to turn into a 3-day retreat. So there will be the options of doing the 8-week online or a 3-day retreat. And then I am doing a higher level program that I would call the Soul Rising, which is the 4-month program where weekly I do trainings and healings. We have a community hour, and it's for 4 months so that I declared this to you, Cassie. I think I was telling you about it, that I just no longer work with people who aren't invested in becoming their best selves. And it's not like a slight or a plight or whatever that word is on anyone. It's not a hit or a thing. It's just, I know what I can show people they can create, but you can't create it by doing one session here and there.
And you can't create it if you're not open to receiving it either.
Exactly. And so that was that's where I'm at right now, where I work with people who are ready to do the steps, are ready to do the work, that I don't need to, tell them, motivate them to change their life. I don't need to like show them and be like, you have things deep within you that need to be healed and your life is on the other side of those things. These people already know that. They're ready to like take the plunge, take the leap of faith. What they need is the steps. They need the teachings. And so those are the people that I'm working with now. And a lot of them too have similar, patterns of like binging patterns or eating disorders or feeling like they're meant for more and they're not doing anything about it. And that is am I answering the question? I don't know.
No,
I feel totally like I went off.
No, you steered into what you're doing now, which is perfect. We wanted to talk about what you do and the experiences that it's taken you, and this is where it's taking you. And I can say, because I've done her programs and I'm a part of her community, is that when I started, I was definitely someone who would journal and feel like when you journal, you do make a step forward, but I would just always write it and I would never really put it into action. Or I knew I was meant for more, but I didn't really know how or like what to do when I knew. So going and being a part of this community, just like you're literally in a community of people who also know that they're meant for more. And together we figure out how we're doing it. We're all doing different things, but we all figure out how we do our own different things. And whether I'm feeling or going through something, somebody will write in that they're feeling this certain emotion, and I am feeling that emotion too. So it's just a very great community to have.
The community is the best.
It's literally the fucking best.
Incredible.
There's been so many times in my day where I'll feel something and I'll be like, I just need to go to my community, and I'll just like write in the group and be like, this is how I'm feeling. And like every Sunday is like a blessing because it's like church. We have like our own church.
We do, and it's amazing.
It is amazing because you can just show up and be, and a lot can happen in a fucking week, okay? And then Sunday comes and I just feel like that's like not even the restart, it's just the like, it keeps you moving forward. Yeah. And it's a great community. And when you want to join programs or of self-development of any kind, it's always just nice to be in not just a one-on-one, but a program, because then you know that you're going to be with like-minded individuals most often, and people that you can turn to and relate to and see their success, which then makes you want to be more successful, and like you just like, it's a ripple effect.
Totally.
So it's a great community. Now, because you did mention that this is your life, it is the way you live your life, it's your lifestyle.
Yeah.
How did you integrate it into your relationship with your husband Jesse or your daughter Harlow or your family?
Well, that could be a very long-winded answer.
It could be an answer, but I just love it because your family's just so admirable. like goals. My family's gonna be like this.
You know what? Like, yes, your family will be like this. Like, one of the things, I mean, I introduced Jesse to the self-development and spiritual world, and he jumped with both feet in. And one of the things that also Jesse's beginning to discover is how much medicine and teachings and wisdom he has to offer people. And so one of the things that, I mean, Jesse took the landmark form after I had told him about it on our first date. He signed up for it. And he always tells the story. He's like, you know, I signed up for this self-development course because I wanted to impress Amber. I was like, I'm going to get under her pants. I'm going to sign up for this course. And he's like, I went there and it changed him. And so it like I'm like, what is the word? It like awoke dormant parts of him that he didn't know existed. Yeah. But he also always too, like when you listen to Jesse talk, you know he has an inner knowing. He's meant for more. And so we use it in our relationships. He's that person who, when he learns something, he embodies it immediately. If he learns that he shows up a certain way, which he learned a lot of things about himself in his self-development course, he immediately addressed them when he had the awareness. So if a certain pattern would show up in our relationship from his past, he would immediately address it. And so he honestly was like such a good catalyst for even me to take the next level, because you know, when we're in our shit, our relationships are the easiest thing to take your shit out on, you know? Yeah. The person that you're closest to, you will project all of your stuff onto. You will blame them. You will had a bad day at work and then they're the one who pays for it. And so the way that Jesse took accountability was so inspiring, empowering, that it honestly made me level up and me be like, okay, now when I show up or I have my stuff come up, or I'm being bratty, or I'm giving the silent treatment, or I'm withholding love, or now I'm getting mad at him for something, instead of letting that pattern dominate me, the moment I have awareness of it, I interrupt it. And so honestly, the biggest thing that we do is we embody, like when something's coming up, we communicate, hey, this is what's coming up for me, this is what I'm feeling, and we talk it out. And then we also hold space for the other person. So we listen instead of, you know, listening to respond. We listen to hear that person. And we also know when we need to take breaks and when we need to go outside and take a few deep breaths, or like be like, hey, we're going to separate for like 5 minutes, calm our nervous system down, breathe, and then come back and communicate from a more grounded space. So we implement the teachings that, I mean, if you ever want to do any of our relationship stuff, that I do have a relationship course with him. We're going to be teaching more relationships stuff coming forward. But there's so many teachings that we embody that's kind of hard to like say, how do we implement it? But the teachings that we have of healing and of awareness, and the awareness we have of ourselves, we use it in the moments when it's easy to not behave that way. When it's easy to be mad, or it's easy to be angry, it's easy to blame, it's easy to react. And I don't even, am I answering the question? It's feel like it's such a hard thing to...
No, you are. And I think it's really good because multiple people in this world are in relationships, and a lot of times they experience the same things.
Over and over again.
Over and over and over and over again. So it's just, honestly, like you and Jesse that are so open to talking about like what you do, because you are people just like everybody else, but you guys have put in the work to become who you are now. I've taken that relationship course, by the way. It's wonderful. It's very insightful. It makes you think about what you're doing and where you can improve. And something that I've really learned to do myself in my relationship too is like when I do feel an emotion coming, and tell me if you do this, but do you ever address it? Well, maybe not now because you're married to Jesse, you've been a while. But for me, I'd have to be like, this is what's coming up. I think this is where it's coming from, which is nothing to do with us right now. And then we talk about it. He leaves space for me. It almost like brings it to an understanding, because for me anyways, it was a lot of like past.
Yeah, I mean, I would do that. I'd be like, listen, you're making me feel like my dad did.
Yeah, that's true. That's an example.
It has nothing to do with you, because now and I mean, it takes development to like understand that like
where it's coming
something happens in any situation. Okay, Cassie, if me and you got into a fight right now, I wouldn't be fighting with you. I'd be fighting with an experience that my consciousness identifies as similar. Yeah. So that could be grade 6 when I felt bullied, or grade 9 when I felt betrayed. So it literally doesn't matter. Most often, it's just triggering a past experience, and then you fight from that space instead of what's actually happening. So that's a great thing to do, is be like, hey, listen, you're right now I feel like I'm being lectured by my dad, and I get that you're not my dad. That's not what's happening. I need to take a few deep breaths and collect, like maybe journal about how I feel, and then I'll have a little bit of a clearer mind to listen to you. But also, one of the things that I think is so important in relationships, just as like one blanket statement, is like understanding your partner's trauma is a love language.
Yeah.
It is something that will cause you to be able to understand their patterns, how to support them when their stuff comes up, how to hold space for them, how to treat them so that you don't start all of a sudden thinking about yourself when they're clearly in their own emotion. And so if you're in a relationship, like, get to know your partner's trauma, their past, their relationships with their parents, their issues, what makes them feel unheard, what makes them feel unseen, what makes them feel not wanted or desired or appreciated, so that you can begin to understand them on a deeper level.
It also brings you closer. You know, you're getting to know the person that you're choosing to be with, so it's automatically going to bring you closer. But when you start to understand, you know, their traumas and their past, it really does truly help you navigate. Like, your fight might not be as bad as it would have been if you learned your partner and learned their traumas. And I'm now with a partner in my life for the first time ever that we're doing that.
Yeah.
So I have two comparisons in my life where I can say that it's a lot easier, and it does, every moment that we have where I might be triggered by something, it brings us closer, and like, because we just understood each other a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, it really just offers you the space of having more compassion and empathy for the person that's in front of you, because we forget they're human.
Yeah.
We, you know, in relationships, we think about ourselves, what they're going to give us, how they're going to make us feel, and we forget that they're human, they have their own experiences, and how can we contribute to them? Yeah.
And now I'm going to say you're a new mom, but you've been a mom for 2 years, I guess.
Yeah.
And she's the cutest. Before you had Harlow, or when you had Harlow, obviously you wanted to bring her into your beautiful world.
Yeah.
What was that like? Was it hard? Was it easy? Did you know how?
You know what's so funny is everyone's like, the newborn stage is the hardest. I'm like, the newborn stage is the easiest. Like, all she did sleep. Like, we took a conscious parenting course when she was a newborn, and I learned so much, but it was also one of those times where I'm like, I'd like to take it again now that she has her big emotions.
Yeah.
To have a real life experience, because they'd be like, any questions, Amber and Jesse? And we'd be like, our baby's like, just, she's sleeping, she nurses, she's like, it was just like, okay. But we did prepare ourselves, which I'm super grateful for. But I mean, one of the things that she gifted me was to pay attention to my motherly intuition instead of the way that society tells you to raise your kids. And one of the things that I honestly, like, I don't even care if it pisses people off. Like, our culture is so fucked with the way that we dampen a child's spirit, or we immediately want them to be separated. We immediately want them to learn how to be alone. We immediately want them to learn how to self-soothe. I mean, like, when I had Harlow as a baby, like newborn, nurses were telling me, don't nurse her to sleep. She needs to self-soothe. You need to, like, and I was like, first of all, stay in your lane. Like, what parenting courses have you taken? You know, like, I appreciate nurses, and I'm so grateful for them, and they do a lot of hard work out there for us. But parenting advice is not one of their lanes. And so I also worked with a breastfeeding specialist doctor because I had every problem under the moon with breastfeeding. And she was like, absolutely not. Nurse your baby to sleep. That's what they're designed to do. And she had more of a holistic approach in that sense of, like, you know, so there was things that society tells you to do that it felt wrong in my body. And Cassie, I know I've shared a bunch of stories with you about how there were certain things that I had, it was like an alarm system going off in my body. And that's the only way I can describe it, is when my intuition was saying, don't do that, that's wrong. And there was a couple times that I bypassed it, which was what caused me to never dismiss that feeling.
Yeah.
So I had a few experiences that really was like, it felt like my intuition was being like, listen, bitch, you're not doing that again. You're listening to when it comes up, because this is the result when you don't listen to it. So, I mean, I was like convinced I was going to sleep train. I still co-sleep with Harlow. I will never kick her out of my bed. It's like, every other culture that you look at, like, they think it's crazy you would put your baby in another room, you know, and if you look at species, okay, like animals, the way that they're born walking, they're born you know, mostly independent. They're able to do things on their own. We're like one of the only species that is extremely dependent.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. And we're born needing all this brain development, all this physical development. And so basically she showed me my intuition to a level I never knew I had. And so there was a lot of things I thought I was going to do that I didn't do. There's a lot of things that I feel like if you were to offer all of your child, like all of yourself to your child, it would heal the times that you never got what you needed.
100%.
And one of the things that I think a lot of trauma comes from is and I'm sure you can relate to this, is we feel like we weren't loved or we weren't enough.
Yeah.
And it's not that you weren't loved, it's that you weren't loved the way that you needed it. Parents often love the way that they think you need it.
The way that society is telling them.
The way that they think you should be.
Yeah.
And that's different for every child. It's different. You know, I have to make sure that I learn to give Harlow the love that she needs. Otherwise, she's going to find a way to meet it in an unhealthy way.
Yeah.
And so I've really allowed her to be my greatest teacher, and that in the moments that I feel frustration or I want something to be different, or I'm like cooking and now I have to lay down with her or sit with her and completely stop my day, I'm like, how is this a gift for me? Instead of, I feel like this is something parents go through, you know, and it can be, parenting is challenging. Parenting brings up all your own stuff. It can be, you know, tiring. It can be taxing. It can be emotional. But you regulating your own emotions is what teaches your child to regulate their emotions. If we suppress, if we react, our child learns to suppress, they learn to react. And so that's how I brought it in with Harlow, is I was like, how can each moment heal me? How can every time I'm frustrated, I can release my frustration, process my emotion, and show her how to do that. Never suppress my emotion so she doesn't see it and she thinks I'm always okay. But show her that I can breathe through it, that I can feel it, that I can cry, that I can journal, that I can pray to God, and that she can be a part of the process. And then how can I also be 100% all in for her? So if she needs help falling asleep, if she needs help, I'm there. You know, one thing that I never want to teach my child is that my love is conditional, or that when it's convenient for me. I never want her to think that I only parent during the daytime and not at the nighttime. That I'm only there for her during the daytime. I'm not there at nighttime because my sleep is more important. I don't ever want to teach her that my love is conditional or it's transactional. It's always there for her. I will always be there for her even when I'm tired or when I'm emotional. And so that's how I brought my healing into my parenting.
So I'm just curious because I don't have kids. At the stage of children when they can't speak, but they are crying, and they can't speak, they can't tell you what's wrong.
Yeah.
Would you then get down on her level and, like, how do you handle that?
It depends on what age. I mean, like, now with Harlow,
she can say something.
She actually talks so much. Like, people don't even believe she's 2 because of how much she talks and how her sentences are just like, honestly, today I was like, Harlow, are you 30? And she's like, no, Mom, Auntie's 30. I was like, how do you even know that?
She's freaking cute.
Yeah, she's so funny. But, so I mean, like, Harlow didn't cry very much as a baby. And I had people comment on it. One of the things that my midwife said, because my midwife was with me for a long time because I had so many problems and she was so supportive, was she said that, like, well, she's not crying because she's getting her needs met. And when she's not getting her needs met is when she'll cry, because that's the only way they can communicate is I need something, I don't know how to get it, so I'm going to cry. And, I mean, I know that there can be issues that can obviously cause a child to cry, like physically or, you know, like colic or anything like that. But again, they have something that needs to be fixed or needs to be resolved, and that's why they're crying. But now, I mean, as she got older, what I learned was I never got frustrated when she was a baby, when she would cry or when she would have anything that was like a struggle. But I noticed that now that she is older, when she has really big emotions, I can feel how I was treated when I had big emotions. And so sometimes that causes me to, like, have my own stuff come up, and I have to, like, okay, I got to regulate my own emotions so that I can be grounded for her. Mm-hmm. And so am I perfect and I mastered this? Absolutely not. But it's like something that I'm committed to doing and to becoming better at it. Do I make mistakes? Yes. And I'm continually, like, I will always show up to doing the work because I want her to have that version of me. And so I do the best that I can in these moments. But what I do is I get onto her level. So if she's obviously littler than me, so I get on my knees or I lay down beside her, and I will sometimes when she has big emotions, and if I like touch her and she like hits my hand away or she says no, and then I'll talk to her and she doesn't want me to talk, I don't talk. I just look at her and I hold space for her to move through her emotion. And then usually once her emotion's complete, when she's like released enough, she'll come and sit with me or she'll come cuddle me. I never force physical contact when she doesn't want it. And then I also will, when she's done crying, I'll ask her like what she needs or what I can get for her or what I can do for her. And then I will also look at her in the eyes. So I'll hold space for her. If she says, don't look at me, then I look away. Like, I always listen to, like, what she's guiding me. Because your child will guide you into it. But it's just honestly being present for them. Like, being fully present for them in their emotion. And you being regulated. Yeah. Like, you not being in your emotion. You not screaming. You not yelling. You not, and just being present. Like, honestly, all we need, all of us
is everyone.
We need presence.
Yeah.
Someone to just witness you and allow you to be you exactly as you are, not try and change it. So I don't try and change her emotion. I let her move through it.
I honestly love that so much. And I actually think that you and Jessie, whether it's a podcast or whatever form of creativity that you feel projecting yourself out there, but I really think you both should talk about parenting. Do you already? And I just missed that. I really think you do, because you as a family are a great reflection to what society isn't. And I love that. So yeah, you guys should just put something out there that like people can listen to and just gain a little bit different perspective.
I appreciate
on how to do things.
Thanks.
Okay, the last few questions I wanted to talk about really quick was, this might be actually this is a loaded question, but we'll just go with it. Okay. Is everything going on right now in the world of 2021? It's different everywhere in the world, but where we are, whatever. What do you do on a daily basis to practice just keeping your light, keeping within, and not letting external sources out there affect you? Or
well, I feel I go through a lot. Like and I'm sure that if you have empaths or anyone who's very intuitive that listens to your podcast, when you feel the world's pain, it's not easy. So, I mean, I don't sit here and like being like, oh, don't worry, I'm all love and light. And I think that sometimes too, like we talked about the darkness and how going through your own healing is dark. The world is going through healing and we're like in the pit. We're like in the dark, fiery, flaming pit
that
of fear and of control and of darkness. And so sometimes it sucks me in. But one of the things that I honestly encourage everyone to do is it's important to have awareness. It's important to know what is going on, but it's also essential that you guard the gate of the mind. So you guard the information that's being penetrating your beautiful little consciousness.
Yeah.
And what happens is fear pollutes the spirit. And then when people feel fear and other people don't feel the same fear as them, why don't you feel the same way as me? We project anger. And anger and hate and all of this can be very dangerous and very volatile when unregulated, when unprocessed. And so I guard the gate of my mind. I put my phone on airplane mode. I will allow myself to find out what's going on, to know what's happening, but I never listen to the news because it makes me want to vomit. I will put things that nourish my mind instead of pollute my mind. So I will listen to a podcast. I will listen to music that is spiritual. And if you're wondering what that is, download Trevor Hall.
Oh, he's the best.
I will listen to like instrumental music, like healing frequencies. I will sing myself. I will pray. I will meditate. I will color pictures with my daughter. I will do things that nourish me instead of take from me. And so one of the things that I think everyone needs to do in regards to whatever's happening in the world but everywhere else, what are the things that are you engage in, that you participate in, that take from you instead of give to you, instead of contribute to your life? Guard the gate of your mind, control what you're putting into your mind, and breathe. So your breath is what moves energy, it's what expands you. Last night I did a cacao ceremony by myself. I lit candles in a circle around me. Jessie went for a run. I had music playing. I drank my cacao. I journaled, and then I meditated.
Oh, I love that.
And this was when the restrictions were announced and all the stuff that happened. So I'm like literally in this zen, beautiful state because I just.
And then you get this like brr on your phone.
And And people are messaging me, like my phone blew up being like, did you hear, how are you feeling? What are you doing? Like I had all these people reach out to me.
I could imagine you did.
And so I literally put my phone on airplane mode. And then I like right now what I'm doing is I'm really focusing on what I'm creating. So I've determined that I decide that I'm powerful and that I get to create my dreams. And it's easy in this world right now to play small. It's easy in this world to let them take your power away, or to what's happening take your power away. And so I really am conditioning, and I'm like training myself. Like I want you to think that, you know how people condition and train themselves, like bodybuilders or like these crazy, like, what are those things called?
Like
power lifters. They condition themselves to this level of strength where it doesn't waver.
Yeah.
And so I am conditioning myself every day spiritually. So I condition my mind, I condition my spirit, I condition my breath, and I'm taking it to a new level that I never have before, because this is what the world is requiring. Okay, so if you don't have a spiritual support system, which is also why our community is so essential right now, important. Is if you're not conditioning yourself daily, it will feel like these things can take you out. It will feel like the world has your power. It will feel, and so right now I am conditioning myself spiritually in a way that I never have before. So I would encourage people to, nourish your mind with spiritual content, or content that uplifts you and inspires you.
And that's what you mean by like taking it to the next level.
Yeah.
It's pretty much what you did last night.
Like instead of doing anything else, like instead of being like, I'm
gonna watch TV.
I'm gonna watch TV. I'm gonna do breath work, and I'm gonna meditate, and then I'm gonna journal. And then if I feel like watching a show before bed, sure. But that takes precedence over me having any other thing come forth.
Yeah.
Being in nature, go outside, okay?
Yes.
And when I say be in nature, I don't mean like just your street where all those houses are. Like immerse yourself deep into the river valley, into trees, into the mountains, or wherever you can go, so that you can allow that to heal you. Because also what happens is nature pulls energy and transmutes it and heals you.
That is so the truth.
So I would say do that. Do some breath work. Your breath moves energy. It expands your aura. It purges and releases things. What you can do is you can take your power back by how you take care of yourself. We're living in a world where everyone's talking about health. So what are you doing to take your health to the next level? Are you gonna how can you move your body in a way that expands you? That isn't like in an unhealthy way, that's like overtraining or overexertion or over dieting. It's nothing about diet. It's like, how can you move your body intuitively that makes you, is that dancing? Is it walking? Is it, what way can you take care of yourself? How can you nourish your body in ways that is going to empower you and uplift you instead of take from you?
Yeah, I think that's really important. That keywords is like empowering and lifts you up, because I know for a lot of people, and that messaged me with the whole restrictions that came out, is that people are feeling like whomever is taking life away from them, but do the things that you need to do that literally makes you feel like you're on top of the world. Mm-hmm. Your own world. Yeah, no, I think that's really important, and I know for the people that follow you and or will be working with you, it's always nice to hear for somebody that you admire and look up to, because I could imagine how much your phone was blowing up. Because I look up to you, I was like, I wonder what she's doing, because I need some insight here.
You messaged me, but you messaged me like a beautiful message in comparison to what everyone else was saying.
Yeah, and honestly, because I've worked with her so many times and I know what I need to do. So I journaled for 2 hours and cried a little bit. But yeah, I think that was really important. But overall, I just really appreciate you taking the time to be on my podcast, because you are somebody that I do look up to. You're a dear friend of mine, and you have shown me the ways that I can change my life as well. And I think that for the people that are listening that have never worked with Amber, have no idea who she is, I hope this is a great insight to know that she really truly has some special gifts that she can change your life or show you how you can change yours. And as far as I'm concerned, everybody needs to know that about you, and everyone just needs to be involved in your community, because it truly is the best place in my world right now. I'm just incredibly grateful for you and everything, and your family and all of the things that you do. So thank you everyone for listening, for tuning in, and we will definitely see you in the next one.